Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Very happy and pleased today to have you all with us in this meeting. This session we having our dear Dr. Alaa Garad. We'll introduce him shortly. And the topic today about the organizational learning. How can learning help organizations during the crisis and after the crisis as well? So this session comes from HR Leaders Kuwait. We work with a mission to connect HR, OD, excellence people and professionals in Kuwait and in the region, and to let them share their expertise and their knowledge with us, ensure that they develop themselves and develop their communities as well. And this will help the whole world to become a better world. Okay, hopefully, inshallah. So today we are honored to have our dearest colleague, Dr. Alaa Garad. He's Associate Professor, University of Portsmouth, UK, and he's Deputy Chair in BSI ISO Technical Committee and responsible for the human capital, as we were just talking. He's the author of the Learning-Driven Organization Model and creator of the Certified Organization Learning Professional. He's the president of the Organization Learning Excellence Conference. Dr. Alaa has been in different positions, and he is contributing in different conferences and efforts to promote the concept of organization learning worldwide. So we welcome Dr. Alaa, and inshallah it will be a great session. And as we said, we'll open the questions at the end of the session, and hopefully, inshallah, everyone will benefit from this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad. It's my pleasure, and I'm glad to be with you today. And I'll do my best to make it within 30 to 40 minutes, so I will try to make it crisp to the point. Should I share my screen now?
Yes, please.
Sure. I think you need to allow me to share the screen. It's disabled. Yeah, I think it's coming now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So welcome on board, everyone, and I'm glad to be with you today. The topic I will talk about, it is not new. It's new in the terminologies and new in the practices. And thank you, Dr. Muhammad and HR Leaders Kuwait, for inviting me and for the nice introduction. So you get an idea. My main work is about standards, quality, and organizational learning. And basically, I am very focused on linking the quality to learning or business excellence. So in my view, learning means excellence. And without learning, we cannot become excellent, we cannot implement the quality, or we cannot proceed with continuous improvement. So you can see the logo of the organizations that I'm affiliated with, in addition to my work at University of Portsmouth. In fact, I'm considering myself lucky. I live in this nice city, or basically I work in this nice city, which is Portsmouth. It's in the south of England. However, I live in another city called Dundee, which is in Scotland. And this is Dundee at night. This is exactly where my home is, this river called Tay River. I'm indebted to this commute between the city I work at, which is Portsmouth, and Dundee, because it gives me a luxury or opportunity for reflection and further learning and writing and publishing my articles. So I use this time for reflection. And originally, I'm coming from Egypt. The topics will be mainly trying to answer the questions why learning is important and how can we learn, and what would be the outcome of learning. In doing this, I will share with you my, I would say, 19 years journey in research and practice, though I am working in academia. However, I used to work as a consultant, advisor, and assessor in many standards. But also I used to be a quality manager in some organizations like Emirates Airlines and Union National Bank. I was director of quality. So I combine industry with academia. It is important to weave the theoretical perspective with the practice. So I'm a paradigmic. We have this concept in the UK called paradigmic, so practitioner and academic. So learning is something I think we all agree it is important, it is crucial, but it's not compulsory. It's not mandatory. That means no one will force us to learn. If we don't want to learn, we will not learn. So nobody can force us to learn. So learning is a choice. So I will talk about which learning I mean. And I'd like to start with the quote from Dr. Deming: learning is not compulsory, neither is survive. And for those of you who didn't hear about Deming, he is considered the godfather of the theory of quality management. So Deming was a visionary, futurist, and a leader and practitioner as well in the field of quality management and how to implement quality without just terminologies or only standards, but the essence of quality, which we miss, or something really we lose when we try to implement quality without learning. So you could see some companies who got standards or applied quality, but they do not learn, and this is why they cannot sustain their quality level. Just a little housekeeping thing, Dr. Muhammad, I think there are people in the waiting room, around 6 people. So if you like to let them in. So Deming wrote a book in 1982 called Out of the Crisis. In this book, he described or explained 14 principles, or we call them 14 points of Deming or 14 points of management. He drew a roadmap for organizations from all sectors on how to improve the quality of life, and that includes quality of healthcare sector, quality of products, services, every aspect of life impacting our crisis. If you look around today, we are in bad need to learn things to get out of the crisis. So this book is still alive. The recent publication was 2020, and it's published by MIT. And if you Google it or go to Amazon, you will see, I think also you can get a PDF or a soft copy of the book. So I start from start from two leaders, one in the quality, the other in organizational. The other one is knowledge work of each other. Probably Deming didn't mention Peter Singh because he was before him long ago, before Peter Singh. However, Singh acknowledged the work of Edward Deming. Idea about the importance of Deming, he received 27 honorary doctorates in his work and contribution around these 14 points and about contribution to quality. So I talked about quality to give you an idea that I started the journey of organizational learning and the work around learning from the base or the ethos of quality management. And I'll tell you why I am very keen to establish and improve the link between quality and learning. However, allow me to watch this short video. Can you hear it, Dr. Muhammad? Is it clear?
Have you ever thought of why companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Xerox are great companies, and why they have sustained excellence over the years? Or why some countries like Finland, Norway, and Denmark have some of the best public services in the world, keeping them at the top of the World Happiness Index for decades? And why some individuals are achieving better results than others? On the other hand, have you thought of why 50% of the Fortune 500 disappear every 10 years? Or why some countries stagnate in the same place for decades, sometimes becoming worse in every aspect? It is not only about leadership, not only about people, not about technology, and not just about fortune. So what is it? It is learning. Learning is the only sustainable, competitive, and collaborative advantage that an individual, an organization, or a government can have. Without learning, we repeat our mistakes and become worse. But with learning, we find solutions to our fundamental problems. If we are able to learn effectively and apply what we learn, we will become better in every aspect. Individuals will unleash their potential and accomplish what they aspire to. Organizations will realize their visions and accomplish their strategic objectives. Government agencies will satisfy their customers and improve the quality of life. Ultimately, we will have a lifelong learning nations. The challenge with learning is that it is so complicated because people and organizations learn in different ways and different speeds. There is no one-size-fits-all, yet we need some guidelines. We need to see some examples so that we can learn from them. We need to know what to do. As Edward Deming once said, people do not mind doing their best, but they need to know what to do. For more information, please visit www.ldomodel.org.
So I hope this short video explains or give an idea why learning is important and from where we really focus or highlight the need for learning. This is another reading if you are interested to read. And this is the expert or the guru who theorized and published about organizational learning and came with the fifth discipline book, one of the best sellers till now. This guy in the middle, Peter Singh, the chair of organizational learning at MIT. And that's me in the old days. And then I continued learning, and a few years ago, we organized the first conference on organizational learning in Abu Dhabi, where Peter Singh was the keynote speaker in this conference. If you read any literature or book about learning on the organizational level, and when I say organizational learning, we mean the learning on organization, on teams level, and on individual level. So there is a consensus about that learning is the only sustainable competitive advantage. For i.e., technology can be outdated, can be copied, even people can be headhunted. We can get the best people. So as an organization, you may lose technology, you may lose people, but the one thing you will never lose is learning, unless you want to lose it, unless you do not feed it and improve it and keep it alive, then it will fade away and we will lose this advantage. However, if we sustain learning, we will continue having a competitive edge. The question now, who learns? Okay, we know that individuals, students, people go to schools to learn. We attend training courses, we learn from them. So we are very clear that people can learn or may also have learning disabilities. But is it only about people? Is it only about individuals? In the first place, individuals can learn. So we agree on that the learning agents in the business, in the company, in the first place will be the members of this organization, people. So what are the different techniques or methods these people learn with? Because there is no one size fits all, as mentioned in the video. There are different techniques, there are different mechanisms for learning. and also people learn with different speeds. So it is not one speed, it is not one technique. Have a diversified package of tools and mechanisms for learning. Some of these learning mechanisms called coaching. We know coaching, we know mentoring. Reflection is another mechanism or tool for learning. And I mentioned about the commute between the two cities, and that gives me a golden opportunity for reflection and thinking again about the decision I make or I prepare them to be taken. It gives an opportunity to reflect on my experience and transform it into writings, into articles. I write a weekly column every Monday. I have a weekly column in a newspaper called Emirat Al-Yawm, where I use the outcome of reflections in this article. And since we're talking about in Kuwait as well, I write in Al-Ra'i Al-Am. I wrote several articles in Arabic in Al-Ra'i Al-Am. Another mechanism is observation, which is really a talent, and I would say a gift, where people do not really need to invest a lot of resources to learn by observation. So they don't need to repeat others' mistakes. So they look into the scenario around them, they do diagnosis, analysis, and then they come up with not enough. Learning should be followed by action, because in fact learning occurs or happens in mind, in our cognition. Without taking action after learning, then we cannot really gain the benefits of learning. We can learn in school or may not learn as well. So sometimes the education system could be the main barrier for learning. We teach in a way that doesn't recognize or satisfy or consider the individual needs. We assume that all students have the same capacity, they learn in the same speed, they learn in the same way, and that's what I mean by having education system as barrier for learning. Of course, training is another technique for learning. So individuals can learn. Who else can learn? Teams can learn. So groups, you may see this in some companies. In the same company, you would see a department is performing better than another department. You can also feel that the atmosphere and the way people talk to each other, the way they perform, is different from other departments. And I would say the simple secret recipe here is learning. I'm quite sure you would see some, if you investigate it, there would be a manager or a director in this department who appreciates and knows the importance of learning. So he or she would establish the environment that encourages everyone to learn and to share their learning. So there are so many techniques for groups learning, but who else can learn? Organizations can learn. And there are also other techniques for organization, learning on the organization level, or we call it organization-wide learning. One of them is audit. I'm sure when I say audit, some of us will feel fear. Audit always associated with negative things, with inspection, with error hunting or mistakes hunting. But audit is a very good opportunity to learn from our non-compliance, to learn from our areas for improvement and from problems. If we look into audits from this perspective, that audit is an opportunity to identify areas for improvement, we will love audits. We will consider audit as a free consultancy that we get, and it gives us areas for improvement. We can learn from scenario planning. We can learn from benchmarking. It's a big topic in management, which is basically learning from others' experience. So that's benchmarking. So there could be learning on 3 levels or domains: individual, team, and organization-wide learning. So you may like to have a screenshot of this slide. So this is these are the 3 levels where we talk about in detail now. Organization-wide are the mechanisms that impact everyone in the organization. And by all means, if you are a member in this organization, you cannot not learn. You will have to learn. Because the system will help you to learn and to share your learning. But before we go deeply, what are the qualities, what are the things that we need to consider to learn? I would say characteristics or traits that I've developed based on practice. So it's not only research or empirical backed work, but this is based on personal experience and practice backed with research. And the first point is to be humble enough to learn. That's, I would say, comes as number one. Then taking ownership and invest in learning. Invest in learning in terms of time, in terms of financial resources and technology, but learning isn't for free in all cases. I know there are so many mechanisms and techniques that we can learn for free. We can read, we can watch, we can go to free resources on Google or internet, but still, at least we would put time in this. So time investment is something important, but sometimes we need to invest more than time. We have to be brave as well to face our ignorance and to accept that we are ignorant in some areas and don't feel shame to be ignorant of something. I know in our Arab culture, when you say I don't know, or it is very hard to admit that I don't know something, especially if I'm a teacher and my students ask me something. In our culture, we wouldn't admit that I don't know, but there is no harm at all to say I don't know or to accept our ignorance. Become trailblazer, and what I mean by trailblazer is to be a torchbearer, is to be the one who really go to the unwalked or less walked routes or paths. So that's important. Reading, and maybe I would put read number one, because it is very important as well. Observe, reflect, tolerate, share what you learned, and most importantly, take action. Take action on the learning. All of the top 9 traits or characteristics wouldn't add any value if you don't apply number 10, where you need to take action. So the outcome of all these theories and concepts since 2001, and I started, of course, before that, but I mean in terms of conducting research in this body of knowledge called organizational learning. These are 3 outcomes or outputs of this research. We published or discussed the paper on integrative model for organizational learning in Liverpool University in April 2018. That's the only conference in organizational learning in Europe called Organizational Learning Knowledge and Capabilities Conference. Also, we published a peer-reviewed refereed article with the model called LDO, the Learning Driven Organization, in the Industrial and Commercial Training Journal. And recently we finished the manuscript for the book called The Learning Driven Business that will be published in 2021 by Bloomsbury in London. And of course, there is a self-publication called The Learning Driven Organization available on Amazon. I'm interested to do some more reading. In order to develop this body of knowledge and this framework about learning, we have conducted some thorough research. We had 44 interviews. We spent around 800 hours in direct observation of people at workplace to learn their techniques and how they apply these theories. We reviewed some documents, over 3,000 artifacts. We conducted 10 focus groups, each of, like, the total of people we interviewed was approximately 37 participants. Why we have done this and why we invest time in doing this? Because we all know that learning is important. We have done this to come up with a roadmap, or to come up with a vehicle that we can use in order to achieve or implement learning. Because as I said, we agree that learning is important. The question is what type of learning and how we implement it, because learning means different things to different people. And in some companies or some executives, they think learning is just sending employees for another training course. But that's one of the methods. So we wanted to study the different techniques and methods of learning, and wanted to further understand this phenomena, this concept of organizational learning in practice, not only from literature. So to remind you of the elements or the components of any learning system, we have three components. We have the learner, of course, we have the learning process, and we have the learning outcome. So these are three main components. And of course, in the areas, the intersection areas, you can put technology, you can put other factors that impact these elements. So they don't work in vacuum, but they have to work within an environment that encourage learning. So this, I mean, the journey of research and practice by myself and Professor Jeff Gold, he has his professorship in organizational learning from Leeds University. We summarized the outcome in these points. First, we identified 15 mechanisms, 15 methods that organizations can use. We tested these methods. We implemented them in other organizations after research, and we had a tangible result that can be measured financially. One of the organizations where we applied benchmarking techniques and action learning, that was in United Arab Emirates, we saved them 400 million dirhams. And this is a published case. So we wanted to have a proof of concept that these specific techniques can work and can bring a tangible outcome. I'm not saying this is an exhaustive list and these are the only 15 mechanisms, but I'm saying these are the mechanisms that we studied, and we have proven them, and we have empirical evidence, practical one as well, that it works. We stated the obvious also in terms of leadership, because without this commitment from leadership, it will never work. So we stress and we reconfirm the importance of leadership. We also confirmed the need for technology, especially these days. We're talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, and all of these technologies. And unfortunately, in some organizations, even some governments, they give it a lip service. They just talk about artificial intelligence, just talk about these emerging technologies, but there are no practices, there are no actual investment, at least in the education of people. But if you look into some countries like Singapore, like Scandinavia, like Estonia, you would be surprised to know that Estonia has become a role model in the smart government and in applying these techniques in businesses, I mean, private sector, as well as public sector. The fact number 4 is about the employee engagement, because disengaged employees will not learn. If they are disengaged, if they are mentally resigned from the company, they will not learn. They will not simply give a damn. They don't care. So in order to engage employees in learning, they have to be, in order to get outcome of learning, employees have to be engaged and genuinely engaged. Another important aspect here is to recognize learning. When people learn, we have to thank them, we have to reward them, we have to appreciate that learning, especially if it is reflected, if it is implemented in the business. We have to encourage team learning as well, because not every organization, actually there are so many, very few organizations that consider the team learning. So we learn together as a team. And then learning from stakeholders. Every organization, every company, even every individual, we have stakeholders. And these are fantastic sources for learning. So we need to learn from partners. We need to learn from competition. We need to learn from the regulatory bodies, the industry partners, the customers, and name it. So learning from stakeholders is a missed opportunity, actually. We missed this opportunity. So the definition of organizational learning, I don't want to read it. You can have a look for yourself. That we came up, Professor Jeff Gold and myself, and is published in our paper and in our book as well. So the process of modifying organizational behavior. And we start with modifying behavior because we believe that we don't learn for the sake of learning. We learn to become better, to make this world a better place to live. If that learning doesn't help us to become better, then we should invest our resources in something else. The 3 levels of learning, we call them OL mechanisms. We have individual, team, and organization-wide. And under every one of these titles, you can see the list of mechanisms or practices. Of course, it wouldn't be possible to explain all of this in our presentation. However, I'm happy to make another presentation to any selected topic that you fancy here in these methods. I would say this is another good slide, if you'd like to take a screenshot of this one, where it is a genuine, I would say, contribution to knowledge and to the domain of organizational learning, where we identified 3 types of people here. Those people are members in the organization. They could be insulators. They could prevent learning and stop learning. They don't let it pass. So when it comes to them, they don't let it pass, or actually they prevent it. So they're anti-learning, if I would say. The second type is called learning incubators. They actively learn and they know things and they have experience accumulated from learning, but they keep it for themselves. They don't share this learning. They don't share this knowledge. That's why we call them incubators. The third one is the learning connectors, and this coming from physics and electricity. So these individuals are actively learning and are equally actively sharing their learning with their peers, with their management, with their subordinates, and with everyone in the organization. And actually, the smart and the good job of leaders is to transform these 2 types into the first type, to make the learning insulators and the learning incubators, to convert them into learning connectors. In a nutshell, these are the different techniques of individual learning, and I mentioned them before, and I left one here, a blank space, because there's other techniques, other methods. Okay. So you can learn from job rotation. You can learn informally from people, from your friends, from your family members. So learning is not only in the classroom. As I'm a fan of reflection, and to help you to reflect, and probably you can use this exercise at any time and simply ask yourself these 3 questions. What are the things I need to stop doing right now? Things that I want to continue doing, and things that I would like to start doing. I'm not doing it now, but I would like to start it. Think of it. Whenever you think of incident or your life or workplace or even social relations or your relation with your partner, if you want to become better, ask yourself these 3 questions. And believe me, if you are serious about it, if you take notes of the outcome of your reflection and take action on these notes, believe me, it will be better. Okay, and I can bet, if you like, I have a guarantee, and I've practiced this 100 times, hundreds actually. So moving to the second level called team learning, and these are different techniques and methods, and we've written a chapter in the book about each one of these. But I encourage you to Google any of these terms. Go to internet and type after action review or quality circles or problem-solving teams. That's so unmeasurable. I mean, resources about these different techniques. I like these cartoons. Actually, it was designed for this presentation and for the book by a fantastic cartoonist called Ahmed Gaisa in a magazine called Sabah al-Khair in Egypt. So these all cartoons designed for your presentation. This technique called after action review, and as I said, I wouldn't talk about it. I want you to discover what is this AAR, after action review, and I'll be more than happy to receive your feedback and your input after you search for after action review. So that the previous slides talked about individual and team, and this one talks about the organization-wide. The practices that impact everyone in the organization. So it's not individual, it's not team, it is everyone. And I pick here suggestion system, for example, and I tell you why I'm picking suggestion system. I'm sure you have heard about a car manufacturer called Toyota. Okay, we know Toyota very well. Toyota started their creative idea and suggestion system called TCISS. They started this system in 1949 to get ideas for improving the quality of their products, which is car. By 1974, they received the first million suggestion. From 1974, they got 1 million suggestion from their employees. In 1984, this 1 million has become 10 millions. 20 millions in 1988. Okay. In 2012, the number of suggestions received at Toyota was 40 million ideas registered, documented. And that's the last statistics I had, 2011. I'm curious to know how many of these suggestions now, especially in this crisis. And if you know, please share this information with me. I will appreciate it. So imagine a company that received 40 million ideas from their employees. How come? I mean, how this company will become? It is amazing. And this is why you see Toyota everywhere. And they sustain their business and they succeed and they come up with new products. Another company here, which I studied their case very well, called LL Bean. I don't know if it is available in Kuwait or no. The products is mainly outdoor activities. And what they do for learning, they have their own practice where the chief executive of the company, whenever they come up with a new product, of course, before producing the prototype of the product, they get feedback from customers. They ask them about what the expectations and needs and all of the homework. But then when they manufacture the first 100 units, the CEO invites a representative sample of customers to his house in a weekend, and they have a barbecue, they chat and they talk, and they give the product as a gift for the selected customers. They ask them to use it for a month and come back again after 1 month in an organized barbecue at the chief executive house to give them their feedback directly. So the customers talks directly to the product manager, they talk to the sales manager, and all the team from the company is there listening directly to the customers who practiced or who used the product, the new product that's not in the market yet. At one time was a guy who got, the product was a tent, this outdoor small tent, and he lost his notebook and pen, or he had a marker. So he used to write his comments on the tent when he was camping outdoor. So he backed and wrapped the tent and brought it with them with all his notes written on the tent. And this is why such a company is being cited and used as a case study in organizational learning. It was a very simple practice, but the beauty about this practice, it is continuous, the continuity. So it's not about getting a good idea or a brilliant practice and just go and implement it. It is more about how to sustain the practice. So to summarize how this model looks like the LDO, or the learning driven organization, where are the 3 levels and the 15 mechanisms. Imagine the organization is exactly this circle or oval shape. And in the core of it, we have the individual learning here at the bottom of the pyramid, then team learning and organizational learning. So that's the shape of the LDO, or the structure of the LDO. Another way to think of the model is like a cogs, 3 cogs here, where culture is the main one, because if you want to learn in the organization or even on the individual level, we have to work on the culture side. We have to improve the culture and eliminate the blame culture and the fear, so people don't feel shame when they make mistakes and they go and talk about it. So the first cog here is the culture. The second one are the mechanisms, which I talked about, the 15 methods, and then the result. But you cannot measure, you cannot improve, or cannot manage as well. So we need to learn how to measure learning. And think of a pyramid shape. So the culture comes here at the bottom, or the base of the pyramid. Then the mechanisms are the building blocks that help us, or we use to build this pyramid. And on the top is what's in it for us, what is the outcome, what is the ROI, or return on investment. And here I use the famous golden circle, or Simon Sinek, start with why. So why is tackling the culture, how are tackling the mechanisms, and what is the result. Another slide, you may like to have a screenshot of it. The rest of the slides here, we try to make it really, I don't want to say descriptive or prescriptive. The model remains a holistic framework. However, we have put some guidelines here. So let's say, now I am convinced, I am sold, I love learning. Now tell me what to do. You've told us many stories here are nice examples. I want to go tomorrow and start this learning. What to do? Here is what to do. We have specific requirements. All in all, I'll go through quickly. So from A1 to A8 here, if you work on these 8 requirements, you would fit or tick the boxes of culture. If leaders establish and nurture learning culture, if leaders are role model, trust is organization-wide. If you want, think of every line of these. If we are able to do 50% of them, 100% we will become a learning-driven organization, and I guarantee this. And I'm happy to take the challenge of any organization, from those of you now attending this presentation, wants to test these principles. I'm more than happy to help and to see the outcome of the practices here. In terms of mechanisms, we have 20 requirements, starting with the strategy to set the direction of learning, to set the budget for learning, the reward system or recognition system, how to articulate it, and have something called learning charter. Okay, so there are specific steps. Again, most of these we spend days and nights, Jeff and I, and also another over 30 academics and industry leaders to review these words word for word. We wanted to make a standard or a model that is self-explanatory, that can be understood by everyone. So please feel free to go through the requirements. I'm happy to receive your feedback. I'm happy to explain it further. So these are all the requirements, and these are the 7 requirements for the results and measuring the ROI. Because if you want to convince the senior management that learning is important, they will ask you, okay, tell me what is the ROI, the return on investment. So we have considered this as well. These are, I mean, I'm trying to capture as much as I can, but that's it. And this is the world we live in. I know these are tough words here. We may have education, but not learning. We have a world where poverty is a big issue, terrorism, global warming, injustices everywhere. So basically, simply, the world gone mad. How to go about it, how to deal with this, we have to learn. We have to implement our learning, and we have to learn from others' experience. We don't have the age or the time to repeat all mistakes. So we have to learn from others. What I want you to remember from here is to put the learning, or put learning in your to-do list. When we go shopping, we have our to-do list or our to-shop list. In the morning, we write for ourselves to-do list. Do we write learning as one of these to-do lists? If not, then please start writing learning as something to do. So we need to consciously and proactively learn. Individually, as a team, and as an organization, not only this, as a government as well, the learning government. It's another big topic that is being discussed in OCE, in the World Bank, and in Asian Development Bank as well. So the coming trend is the learning government. No excellence without learning, and it is very dangerous to stop learning, but even it is more dangerous to learn than fail to take action. That's even more dangerous than not learning. I would like to quote this quote from Mahatma Gandhi. I love this quote. I'll leave it for you to read it for yourself. And I would like to close with this beautiful faces, and I would establish or call for an action, call for a wake-up call. Let's think of their future. What legacy we want to leave for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alaa, for this great presentation. I think it's very insightful, and for me, it makes me feel concerned about, okay, that's really great.
That's good. I mean, being concerned, that means you thought of it. I mean,
yes,
you appreciate how serious is it.
Yes. It is. Actually, I think most of the people attending with us here today, they are working in the field, either in learning and development, HR, quality, excellence. So everyone's really concerned. And again, I think the real challenge here is how to get these things into action. How can we really implement this?
Absolutely.
And especially, as we were talking about the crisis and the pandemic that we are all going through, how can you go to the CEO or the top management and try to talk with them about learning in these circumstances? Will this be easy? Definitely it's not easy, but what do you think, Irene, from your expertise and from your practice in the past few months? How do you see things? How can we really position this in the right place in this current situation?
That's a good question, actually. And I think this is the main challenge always with change makers or people like us who believe they can change the world. But I would say, I would quote Steve Jobs here, said those crazy people who think they can change the world, they actually do. Okay, so I think this should start with understanding the mindset of the leadership. If I'm working in a bank or in a company or in a department, a governmental department, if I want to build a case and propose a business case to my boss about the importance of learning, I wouldn't go and lecture them that learning is good and learning is important. Please, let's go and learn. I would first do the homework. I would like to understand how they think. So this chief executive or this minister or this governor, what is the agenda? What is their cheese? Do they care about the national agenda of the country, or they are interested in profits, or they are interested in public image? So I need to go inside their heads here and understand what attracts them. And from there, I can start building my why. If I recommend you really this nice reading of Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and it's in Arabic as well, one of the best sellers. So start with why. Why learning is important, why we need to do change. If we are able to answer this question first for ourselves, not for the person we are targeting, We need to understand it very well and be enthusiastic about it. Then we develop, build the case, means we get the techniques, we bring in the techniques, explain how it works, and also we need to tell the outcome. So what is the perceived, what is the expected ROI? Because be ready to get this 3 letters as a question. Tell me, okay, I'm willing to invest, I'll give you $500,000 dinar to learn and to implement something new, but what is the ROI? So I think if we build a good case and we go to the senior management saying, look, here is the case about learning, and here are the strategic objectives we're gonna to fulfill after this, I don't think any senior manager would say no for it, because you are helping them to achieve their target. You are helping them to be there and to be promoted and to stay in what they are doing. So adopt their agenda, simply.
Yes, I think you are totally right, because again, one of the key challenges of people like us that we speak different language. Okay, we always blame, yes, we always blame the top management that they don't like learning or development or quality.
No,
okay,
we position it wrong. It's not they don't like, they like it, but
yes,
we positioned it in another way.
Yes, that's why you have to speak their language. Okay,
exactly,
and,
exactly.
You have to speak their language. You have to tell them how much, what's in it for them. Okay, what's in it for the organization. Okay, so you have to link things together. But if you just say they don't understand us, we are great people, we have great programs and so on, or the normal look at the training, for example, that people go there to spend some nice time and learn things, and then after 1 or 2 weeks, they totally forget about it. Okay, so again, it's trying to link things together. Like, as you said, start with why. Okay, why are we doing this? Build the business case. I think this would be really great example.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I have another question also regarding the current situation, the crisis that we are really in. Have you seen some of the practices for the past few months of some organizations that are known by their learning and development, or they put some emphasis on this, that they are using some of these techniques to get out of this crisis, or to minimize their losses or increase their profits? Have you seen some of these practices in the past few months?
Yeah, that's exactly something always attracts me, because seeing is believing, and people would like to have a proof of concept. I've seen so many good stories before the pandemic and after. But the one after the pandemic, which I was actually attending a webinar this morning, that's from BSI, British Standard Institution. So first, BSI as an organization, as a not-for-profit organization, how they learn themselves. And this is a huge organization where they set almost the standard of the world. So every ISO standard has passed through British Standard Institution and established 1902. BSI did a fantastic benchmarking exercise with other standards bodies. If you may know, every country has some organization or some governmental department in charge of standards, okay, developing standards. So that's a luxury of BSI, because they have access to all the other similar organizations. So they did a beautiful exercise benchmarking to see what are the practices and what are the things to be done in order to minimize the risk and to go back to work with pandemic. I mean, now within the pandemic, under the pandemic conditions, but yet to stay safe and to consider all human aspects. And I like the quote, even it is in front of me here. I would like really to read it. The moderator of the session was saying, yeah, please note that the standard reflected this. Please not working from home, but look at them at home trying to work.
Yes.
Look at this, read between the lines here. So people are not working from home, they are at home trying to work. So one of the clauses of this standard or this publication, I mean, BSI, last week they published a 36-page document with all the wisdom from international organizations and practices to tell companies, to tell businesses how to cope with the pandemic, how to still do the business, but at the same time to appreciate and to protect people and to think of them that they are not working from home, but they are at home trying to work. And he said that every CEO should understand now a new challenge, to know the background of the employees, their personal life, how many kids they have, how many challenges. I'm personally staying here in Scotland talking to you while I have 6 other people living with me, my family. And every one of them has their needs. They need to do their projects. They need to meet their deadlines and studies. So now that's a new thing for the management. They need to understand. I mean, my boss sitting in the university would never think of that background, so they can be more relaxed on demands. They wouldn't ask me to go every day or to meet specific deadlines. So all of these, I mean, I'm just giving a spontaneous example when you asked, and all of these practices have been captured in a beautifully written guidelines, and it's available for free. I actually started to write a series of articles. So last Monday, I published the first article about this guidelines or standard in Emirat al-Yom. I'm happy to share it with you. And there are so many other things. I'm one of the, I mean, I've been all my life interested in the parliamentary work, how parliaments work and things like that. And I can tell you spontaneously 10 practices that the government does here. But let's talk about the private sector or universities. The consultation or listening to your employees, having a dialogue. I mean, I was answering the question now from Paula. She was asking about a question from the Paula Hall, asking something about the medical sector or healthcare sector. We use the term benchmarking in healthcare. We use root cause analysis. And simply I can gather 5 people and sit with them without any budget, and we run a root cause analysis to come up with what are the reasons of the high mortality rate, for example, or infection control. How can we control infection with our own resources, with published reports? So there's so many practices, proven ones, that can really help to make a big difference. I can tell you really so many stories on this.
That's really great. Actually, I've been thinking also about Paula's question here, because it's very important. She was talking about the healthcare is very busy, or they are losing.
And it's a matter of life. I mean, we're not talking about restaurant that you don't like the food, you will not go again, but we're talking about the hospital.
Yes.
You put your life there, you know?
Yes. That's actually what I've seen. I've been seeing that the training or the learning is much more in the few months than have been in the few past years.
Absolutely.
Because, again, even this session, okay? This session, we're doing it at night, and we have partial lockdown here. I mean, that without these sessions and without this continuous learning, we wouldn't have been here. Okay? So this huge number of online sessions, free reports, okay? Absolutely. These are all tools of learning. So it's not the normal way of training department and so on.
And this nice thing now was this conditions and learning. It's like like Japanese came with the just-in-time approach, so learning just in time. If you don't like the seminar, you will just sign off and or just leave it open and start answering your emails while I'm talking. Yes. So you choose to continue or disconnect from learning, which is something good. I mean, nobody will force you to stay in the room.
Yes. And actually also another insights about this also, because many of us were not really used to online sessions or using online. So many people had to go. Up till now, we are trying to, this first time to have live on Facebook, for example. Okay, each time we are trying to learn something new and enhance your skills and capabilities. And again, the amount of learning in the past few months was really huge.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The curve is
yes.
a rocket, not a curve anymore.
Yes. And actually teaching people how to deal with the health and safety measures, and trying to train all the staff, and all the things were not there. Okay. Even the technique that you told us about, which I see it's very good technique, start, stop, continue technique.
Yeah.
I think in
very basic,
healthcare,
very straightforward.
yes, especially in healthcare or any other industry, you have to each day, each hour, you have to say what's going well. Okay, let's continue on this. What we need to start, what we need to stop on. So because again, a lot of empathy everywhere. So I think, as I said, the learning is the key now. Okay, but again, we have to go out of this normal training department and normal training programs. Okay, to learning. Okay, which is it's very important.
Absolutely. You know, in many organizations now around the world, they even changed the title of training manager. They call it chief learning officer.
Yes.
So it's not only about training, it's about learning and how learning can become an OD vehicle that helps you to have organizational development, not just some few training courses.
Yes, and I think this will differentiate between the organizations who will get out quickly or benefit from the situation and others who are still left behind.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think, yes, we really need to focus on this. And I think people we need to see some actions. As you said, you were showing one of the slides and you were asking about if you implement 50% of this slide, you will be great. And I would say if you implement only one thing from this slide, it's a big difference. It's one thing.
The good thing, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Now we have the mechanisms, we have the practices, we have good case studies. Yeah, I mean, just we need to take action. Yes. That's all.
You have to move on. You have to take action, especially in this condition, because also I think the good part of what's going on is that it gives you a good platform for change. Okay, definitely. The urgency is there. So the readiness for change is much higher than any time before. So yeah, I think
the road is paved. The scene is set, is ready now to attack. Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you so much, Dr. Alaa, about this great session, and I think it was very great learning experience. And I think, inshallah, this will be just the start of having a lot of cooperation, inshallah, between HR leaders and yourself. As we're talking, you have a lot of great programs, inshallah, that we can go through our group and we can see how can we provide it to our members, inshallah. So that's really great. And someone was asking about the presentation, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. I will email it to you after the webinar, so please feel free to share.
I think also you have a lot of documents, the BSI document that you talked about. And
sure, I'm also happy to share the guidelines of BSI, and yeah, I mean, anything I can do, I would love to. I mean, knowledge is there to be shared. Nobody really needs to keep the knowledge. So I'm happy to share the slides and also the standard from BSI.
Inshallah. Thank you again. Thank you so much. And I think
Helena is asking about certificate. Maybe you can issue a certificate, Dr. Muhammad. I mean, this is this question for you.
So talking about
I don't see a reason not to do it.
Certificate in general about the program that you have, certified learning professional.
I don't know if Helena is asking about the certificate of attendance of this webinar, or she is asking about the diploma that I created. But anyway, I mean, I will share all knowledge with you. And if there are any questions about the diploma, please ask Dr. Muhammad. We have this diploma that is accredited from Missouri State University in the United States. And we are more than happy to talk about it later. But I just wanted to share some knowledge with you about the topic of organizational learning.
Inshallah, we'll share through email, inshallah, with the participants here. Okay, yeah. And we'll see, inshallah.
We are happy also because we are partner, I mean, myself and Dr. Muhammad. So we're happy to make a special arrangement for those who attended today as well.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you again, Dr. Alaa. Wishing you all the best. And inshallah, we'll see you again, inshallah, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.